friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today I have for you my September wrap-up. It's a rather small wrap-up as I only completed 4 books in the month of September, which I am totally okay with. I traveled on a missions trip to Dominican Republic in September, and that took up a lot of my time before the trip and after the trip, in preparation and then reflection when I came home. So I'm totally fine with just 4 books, but let me jump in and tell you what I read. In September, I was hoping to get to some sequels or to some of the books that have been sent to me, and I gotta tell you, none of these are sequels and none of them were sent to me. So I did not exactly fulfill that TBR goal that I had set at the beginning of the month, but I'm okay with that again. So I really enjoyed a couple of these, and I'll start with one that I loved. And this was a reread for me, and it is The Butterfly and the Violin by Christy Cambrin. This is a World War II historical fiction, but it takes place with dual timelines. In the present day timeline, we're following a woman named Sarah who owns an art gallery. We learn that she was left at the altar by her fiance, so the wedding never happened. She kind of throws herself into her work and shuts out the rest of life. She is particularly obsessed, might be a strong word, but she is on the hunt to try to find this painting that she saw as a young child in France when she was there with her father. One day her assistant connects her to this family in California who have a copy of this very same painting. The grandson of this family, William, crosses paths with Sarah as she travels out there to find out more about this painting, and the two of them together kind of go on a hunt to discover where the original of this painting is. We also follow this woman, Adele, in the 1940s. She is a young violinist who is part of the Viennese orchestra, who ends up at a concentration camp, and she becomes part of the orchestra at the concentration camps, which before I had read this the first time, I did not know that that was a thing, but it's true. The Nazis forced selected musicians who were prisoners at the concentration camps to become a part of Auschwitz, I think in particular, Auschwitz and Birkenau, forced them to become a part of this orchestra symphony who would play as people were coming off of the trains and as they were being forced to stand for hours to be counted, and all of these horrific situations these musicians had to play. And Adele was a part of this orchestra at the concentration camps. She is also connected to this painting, and gradually these two storylines kind of come together in a way based on this painting. So it's fascinating, heartbreaking, page-turner Christian fiction that I absolutely loved. It does have a sequel. That's the reason that I reread this one, is because I wanted to get to the sequel. I haven't done that yet, but I did really enjoy reading this again. I think it's very well written and heartbreaking, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, and look forward to reading the next one. I think it's a companion novel, A Sparrow in Terrazin. I don't think it's a sequel following those same characters. Then I did bring In the Time of Butterflies by Julia Alvarez with me to the Dominican Republic. This is a historical fiction, again, based on this family of sisters who lived in the Dominican during the time of Trujillo, General Rafael Leonidas Trujillo's dictatorship in the DR. He was a horrible person and caused a lot of horrible situations in the DR, and these 4 sisters were a part of the resistance movement, and their story is based on true events. I don't know how accurate these events are because I'm not familiar with the history of the DR at all. It was kind of interesting to see the 4 different personalities and how some of them, well, one of them was always kind of a little bit rebellious and always wanted to push the envelope and was very quick to stand up for things. And then we kind of have a variety of personalities, and one of the sisters is super passive and doesn't want to be involved. One of them is very religious and becomes involved because of her faith. And then the youngest one falls in love with someone who's involved and gets herself invested in that way. The Dominican is not a very big country. They actually have situations where they come across the path of Trujillo, and he knows the family. And it turns out that some of the sisters die in a car crash that may not have been an accident. we kind of follow that story of them entering the resistance to the point of the death of the sisters through the eyes of the one sister who did survive. She's telling the story to a reporter. It sounds like a book that should be right up my alley. However, I found myself very bored when reading this. It did not capture my attention like I hoped it would. I didn't connect with the writing style, and I can't say exactly what about it. It felt very choppy. We have a perspective of all 4 of the sisters, and the youngest one's written in diary format, and it just seems very juvenile, which it was at the time, and maybe that was the point. I don't know, there was a few things about it that just kept me from connecting with it, and unfortunately I think I ended up only giving it 2 stars, because it was okay, and it was an interesting time in history to read about and learn about a little bit, but it also felt kind of light, and it kind of felt like it glazed over some of the terrors and the horrific situations that were happening during this time. I don't know, there was just something about it that didn't connect with me. So I will be unhauling this one, sadly. My Goodreads read-along group in the month of September read I Was Anastasia by Ariel Lawhon, and I think I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and it was very different. In this one, we follow, again, 2 different storylines, 2 women. Anastasia, who was one of the Romanov family, who were historically shot to death in Russia in the early 1900s. We also follow Anna, and we start Anna's story in the 1960s, late 1960s, early 70s, and we follow her story backwards to 1920 when she is pulled from a river where she had jumped or was pushed off of a bridge. And so we follow her story backwards through time, whereas Anastasia's story we follow about a year or 2 before the Romanov family is shot and moving forward to that point in time. So we kind of go back and forth between these 2 perspectives, one of them moving forward in time, one of them moving backward in time. And it took a lot of headspace for me to follow along with that progression and that structure. So it prevented me from getting connected with the story as quickly as I would have liked to. I did message Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library because I know she loves this book, and I wanted to get her opinion and her help to press forward, because I think if this hadn't been a part of my Goodreads read-along, I might have DNF'd this book. Because again, for the first 100 or so pages, I was having a really difficult time connecting to the story of either of these women. I ended up pushing through and I ended up loving it. However, I will say that I know next to nothing about Russian history, about the Romanovs themselves. And so I wanted to believe that one train of thought was what was happening here. I wanted to believe that what I wanted to be happening was really what was happening. But I think because I don't know much about the story, I was able to convince myself of certain things that might not have been accurate according to history. So I think for someone who's very familiar with Russian history and the Romanov family in particular, they might not have had the same enjoyment of this book because they would have known right away things that I just didn't know. So I'll just say that. I can't say much more than that because I don't want to give the feel of the story away, but I really did end up enjoying this one, and I loved discussing it with people in my Goodreads group. There was a mixed bag of feelings. I think a lot of people had a hard time at the beginning, some didn't, but I think by the end most people really enjoyed it. Again, there was a few who didn't, which I love because that makes for good discussion. So I was really thrilled to read that finally. And lastly, right at the end of the month, I finished Betsys Wedding, which is the second part of this book. This includes both Betsy and the Great World and Betsys Wedding. Betsys Wedding is the final, I think, 10th book in the Betsy Tacy series by Maud Hart Lovelace. I'm 2 months behind, I believe, in the read-along, and I don't think I'm going to continue. The others, I think there are 3 or 4 more stories that are kind of companion to Betsy Tacy, dealing with some of the other characters in the novels, but I think I'm going to stop here with Betsy and Joe getting married. Yay! That's a huge spoiler if you've never read the Betsy Tacy series, so sorry. But I have been reading along with this series, it came to a very nice conclusion where we see Betsy get married and begin to become a homemaker, and the struggles that she has because she cannot cook at all, and her spending her time writing. Just some of those early marriage situations that have come up, and I don't know, it's just lovely. I think I liked these books more and more as Betsy got older and older, and so this just felt really nice to wrap up the story with a happy ending, with a conclusion that was very satisfying for me. So I'm thrilled that I finished the Betsy Tacy series this month, and yeah, that was it for September. Just these 4. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with my reading during the month of September. I guess other than these 4, I did listen to quite a bit more of The Count of Monte Cristo, which is kind of my ongoing slow but steady. If you listen to Currently Reading podcast, they have a segment called Slow But Steady, which is where you just kind of read a book slowly and you just keep making progress on it. And that is The Count of Monte Cristo for me. Who knows how long it'll take me to read it, and I'm not giving myself an end date. So it's just going to happen as it happens. But I would love to chat with you down in the comments about any of these 4. Have you read them? What did you think of them? And also, what were some of your favorite reads for the month of September? I love talking with you down in the comments, so let's chat down there about these or anything else that you want to talk about. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye.